Well, good morning. It's wonderful to gather here with this incredible group of Republican Hispanic leaders in California. We're excited to be in Merced at our RNC Latino Community Center as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. First, I want to thank our incredible participants for being a part of the Central Valley Roundtable. We have elected officials and candidates and party leaders who are all willing and able to be here and participate in this, I think, what's going to be a great conversation. Before we get started, I would like to ask Mayor Kevin Lincoln to lead us in a prayer.
Sure, absolutely. If we could bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time that we have together. We ask that you guide our conversations. Lord, let it be just insightful and let it be fruitful and productive. Lord, I thank you for every representative and candidate that's here gathered around this table, and even those that are maybe watching online. And we thank you for the constituents that are viewing online as well. Lord, just pray that you give each and every one of us wisdom this election cycle, God, to make the best decisions and put forth our best efforts, God, to do what's right. And honor you. Lord, we thank you for your grace, your mercy, but most importantly, we thank you for your unconditional love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And now I'd like to ask Assemblyman Juan Alanis to lead us in the flag salute.
Yes, please stand. Ready?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Before I ask our amazing panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves, I wanted to introduce myself to those of you who may not know me. I'm Jessica Millan Patterson. I'm the chairwoman of the California Republican Party. I am also the first Latina that has ever held this role in California, and I'm incredibly honored to be the first. When I was first elected in 2019, it was an incredibly dark time for California Republicans. We had just lost half of our congressional delegation. And we decided very early on that we were going to grow the Republican Party. And a big part of that was showing up in communities that had been neglected by our party over the years. And right here in the Central Valley, this is something that has been critical. Not just showing up in those communities, but making sure that we were recruiting candidates that looked, sounded, and were their districts. And I'm so incredibly proud of the work that we have done over the last several years to make sure that we have a diverse group of candidates that are able to serve in each one of these capacities at every level of government. This is so important, particularly in the Central Valley, where we have over 6.2 million voters, registered voters amongst the Latino community. We've had a lot of success here in California. We've had a lot of success here in the Central Valley. And a lot of that has come from conversations like this and conversations that are happening every day in different parts of our own communities. We have 3 RNC Latino community centers, one right here in Merced, and 2 more, one in Palmdale in Congressman Mike Garcia's district, and one in Bakersfield in Congressman David Valada's office. These aren't the typical campaign headquarters where we just launch precinct walks and do phone banks. We do that too, but we have everything from civics lessons to potlucks and language-specific phone banks that occur in each one of these community centers. We want to make sure that we're recruiting candidates and we're recruiting individuals to be a part of the California Republican Party that share our values. The first step was showing up. From there, it's engaging and continuing these conversations to make sure that they know that the Republican Party is here and we're here to help. So with that, I'm going to have some questions for everybody, but why don't we just start with going around the table and everybody introduces themselves. We'll start with you, Mayor Lincoln.
Absolutely. Mayor Kevin Lincoln, current mayor of Stockton, California, the 11th largest city, the most culturally diverse city in the entire nation. We have over 40% of the Hispanic population as well. Me personally, I'm half Black and half Mexican. Military background as well, served in the United States Marine Corps, was a local pastor for 8 years in town, have some corporate experience. So just live a life of service, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Assemblyman.
Yes, thank you. Well, everybody, my name is Juan Alanis. I'm the Assembly member representing District 22, which includes part of Stanislaus and Merced County. I am a retired sergeant from the Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department, just retired last year. And so now I'm able to bring my experience in law enforcement to the Capitol. I'm the vice chair of public safety. And I also just get to bring experience in general. I have 3 kids who are all grown up and have their careers going on and families as well. So I get to speak as a retired law enforcement officer, a father, and now a grandfather. And so I'm able to take my experience up to Sacramento and hopefully help educate and get people to make great votes. Thank you.
Mayor Lopez.
My name is Javier Lopez, mayor of the city of Ceres. My family came from Jalisco, right around the 70s. I've lived in the city of Ceres since I was 5 years old. I'm also the chair of the Stanislaus Council of Governments. Si hablo español. It's one of the biggest things that are important sometimes when it comes to communicating with our constituents. The reason I mention that is because I feel that every single person in this room knows that's one of the strong points of the engagement with our local community. On top of that, as a career that I had before I was elected, I was a fire suppression technician. I did that for over 20 years. I loved it, but I soon had to retire to fulfill this opportunity to become the mayor of the city of Ceres. For the last 8 years, I've coached football, and that's been one of my greatest passions. Seeing these young freshman football, by the way, seeing these young kids develop, and I think that's also a great way of giving back to the community.
Chairman Campos.
Thank you. Good morning, by the way. My name is Joel Gutierrez Campos. My family is from Durango, Mexico. They settled in San Jose, California, and then moved to Modesto, where I was born and raised. I currently serve again as the chairman of Stanislaus County Republican Party. I'm also a first sergeant, actively serving first sergeant in the California Army National Guard, and a senior transportation planner at the San Joaquin Council of Governments in Stockton. And I am currently also a father, raising 2 daughters with my beautiful wife, Jasmine. Thank you.
Joanna Garcia.
Thank you very much for giving me the option to be here. Again, Joanna Garcia Rose. I'm the candidate in Assembly District 27. I'm an Atwater resident, trying to raise my 3-year-old, and I'm sure everyone's aware the environment in California is a little bit questionable for those things. I'm just wanting to bring back the environment I remember as a child so that I can relive those moments now as a mother with my son. My family actually immigrated from Guadalajara. My grandpa Joe was born in Iowa, I believe. My family moved from Iowa to California in the 70s, and I've had a wealth of experiences. I kind of call it like first life, second life, as far as I was water well drilling and farming with my first husband, and just really learning all about the Valley and what it has to offer, and what a great community and environment we are. And, overregulation, a little bit of hard times. I ended up shifting back into government service. I was a tax auditor for over almost 5 years. I couldn't stay in that position because it was a violation for me to stay in the race. So I'm the high security business manager at CDCR. But I've seen a lot of waste and mismanagement. I just want to bring fiscal responsibility to the state of California. I think we could really do a lot with that. And I want to stop taxing all of us, myself included, into prosperity, because it doesn't work. So I'm excited to bring that forward.
Thank you, Joanna. All right, we'll get right into it. Mayor Lincoln, we'll start with you. What specific challenges do Hispanics in the Central Valley encounter that may differ from the rest of the state? And how have you affected change in Stockton, and how will you bring that to Washington, D.C.?
Sure. When I think about specific challenges that may differ, I just go back to our current economic times right now, where there's not really much of a difference in the Hispanic community of what our challenges are, but there's a correlation, right? There's a similarity there with the rising prices of food, gas, the increased housing costs, all as a result of poor policies, coming from Washington. These are issues that are impacting every single American. And, understanding our region in my congressional district, where nearly 44% of our population is Hispanic. We're carrying, the brunt of that economic impact. But specifically in Stockton, as the mayor for the last 4 years, we've established legislative, priorities that help ease the burden locally for our residents. These are policies that help facilitate, economic opportunity, job growth, business growth, addressing food insecurities, but more importantly, meeting people, being intentional, meeting people at the point of their need. And a big part of that is through public-private partnerships. It's not for the government to solve all the problems. It's up to the government to bring public-private partnerships together and allow community-based organizations, allow the people to be the solution. And that's been, the focus of the last 4 years. And so now going to Washington, that's my focus is not going to change. It's going to be how we can support economic policies that help combat inflation, that tackle the housing crisis, and quite frankly, put money back into the pockets of the hardworking American people.
Absolutely. Assemblyman Alanis, you up in Sacramento, all of the Republicans, if they want to get something done, they have to work with Democrats to get it. How have you done that? And how has it helped the people in your community?
So from day one, relationship building is key. If you look at most and all of my bills have had bipartisan across the board. And a couple of my top bills, 1880 and 1972, all bipartisanship across the board on that as well, have been big priorities with me and with my team. As you may know, and as we mentioned already, the Hispanic communities are very big in California, especially in our districts as well. And so I try and represent them the best I can to make sure that they have affordability, making sure that we still have hospitals where we can at least make sure they're still getting affordable medical care. And you can't do that. You can't make that happen if you're not working on the other side of the aisle. As many people know, the supermajority, there are 62 legislators that are Democrats in the Assembly, and you're going to have to work with them if you're going to get anything done. And I think I've made a very good point of doing that. I know I got 17 bills to the governor this term that I'm very proud of my team and myself for doing, and that all came from working on the other side of the aisle.
So I want to follow up because of your background in law enforcement too. How is that affecting the Latino community, and what are any solutions coming out of Sacramento for that?
So my background has helped me from day one. I actually found that a lot of the members will text me privately telling me, thank you for explaining what the situation was. I've actually been able to get a bill not passed on the floor just with my experience in speaking on what it would do to my community and their communities as well. And those affect Hispanics as much as anybody else. But knowing a lot of the issues that we have, especially here in the Valley and with Hispanics, and with how we're usually the ones left out. We're usually the ones that are expected to pay the regulation or pay the taxes, follow the regulations, but yet not get all the programs like Los Angeles will get or the Bay Area will get, and we're left not having anything. So I think by educating more and more of our colleagues on those issues and using my background as well help immensely.
Mayor, there has been, especially around the Central Valley, what are you hearing from Hispanic constituents are their number one issues, and how do you think Republicans are addressing those issues?
I'll give you, for example, high gas prices. We talk about this all the time, right? So I know that you drive to Sacramento, so I'm sure that you either have a 4-cylinder or a bike, I would imagine.
Bike.
Myself, when I traveled to the Bay Area, I had a work truck at that time, which was a great opportunity for me not to waste gas. But when I did travel without that, it actually put a lot of strain on the trip. But here's the thing. We have to be interested in looking for a solution, right? So I went to Sacramento last week, and I was with this legislator, and that's what we're talking about, high gas prices. And one of the solutions is to suspend the gas tax. But I'm sure that within the details, there has to be a way to backfill that cut, right? Because obviously our constituents, they're going to feel that brunt. So I think with that, everything else follows, right? So if you reduce gas prices, the people are going to have the ability to go to work, and that saves more money so they can put into their savings. And hopefully in the near future, maybe housing could be more affordable. And the American dream is not lost. I don't truly think that is the case. I think what it is that us as Californians, we need to band together and try to make it work because we're in a new era. The pandemic changed everything. Now, 4 years later, here we are. We're trying to figure out solutions, and I think that our party is a great has a great opportunity to do so. Those issues affect the Hispanic Latino community for one big reason. Culturally, we've always been hard workers, and our money is we want to make sure our money is being spent well. And if we can't spend our money in our kids' education and we're throwing it all away in high gas prices, then we have an issue, obviously. So I think I could talk all day with other issues, but I think gas prices is the #1 issue for our constituents in Stanislaus County.
Well, and I think we can all remember when the gas tax was first offered up. We had a competing plan from then Assemblyman Vince Fong, now Congressman Vince Fong, which fixed all of our roads using transportation dollars without raising our taxes, and it was voted down party lines in committee, never even made it to the floor. Chairman Campos, how are you, as the chairman of the Republican Party in Stanislaus, how are you engaging with the Latino community and making sure that you turn them out to vote for Republicans in November?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was voted in as chairman in January 2023, and immediately I've been since then focusing on the Latino community. Before I was chair, we were not members of the Stanislaus County Latino Chamber of Commerce, and we have been for the past 2 years now. Also, implementing creative ideas such as targeting Latino voters where they are, like at local flea markets. And establishing booths at the local flea market and just letting them know who we are, right? Building that awareness of the Republican Party and that we're their neighbors and that we're not just this faraway group that's disconnected from the community. And so I think going into those neighborhoods, supporting nonprofits like the Stanislaus County Latino Chamber of Commerce is a good strategy, in addition to ensuring that we have material and signs in both English and Spanish. The voters, to me, are our clients. And so if my clients speak Spanish, then I'm going to be speaking Spanish, so we need to meet them where they are. In addition to that, I could go on, but quickly, what I'm seeing different this time around in this election cycle is that we have more Latino candidates that are endorsed by our Central Committee. We're directly supporting those candidates by funding and seeding their campaigns and allowing those local school board and city council candidates to go purchase their own literature. And then we walk that literature in Latino neighborhoods. And so I am truly seeing the difference now. In the past, we target just primarily Republican registered voters. But now, utilizing the literature from the candidates, we're able to go in there and go to every house, especially Latino households.
Well, and I think what you talk about going into the communities is so critical. One of the things that we've done at the California Republican Party recently is launching our CAGOP in Espanol, and having the ability to communicate in their native language is something that has been critical for us. We need to make sure, whether it's in the Latino community, the Asian community, where we have some targeted seats down in Southern California and Orange County, this is what we're doing. We know that our values are the same, and the better we communicate that with individuals, the better we are when it comes to election day. We can change hearts and minds along the way, and CAGOP in Espanol, if you don't already follow it, you should be. Before we get on to the next question, I just want to remind everybody that you can ask questions too. We'll have an opportunity. Just type it inside the comment section and we'll get to some audience questions as well. So with that, Ms. Garcia Rose, what do you say to Hispanic voters you encounter who have never voted for a Republican before? And have you found a way that you can connect with them that helps you get them across the barrier they may have had before?
I mean, yes, I don't even like to classify it as Hispanic or the other ethnicities. I just talk to people. I'm a working mom here in the Valley. I wonder if I can afford food and gas at the end of the month with the way things are the same as they do. I'm a state worker, and I just try to relate to people and come to them where they're at. It doesn't matter what ethnicity they are. I have ties. I'm very grateful for my family history, and I'm very proud of, the man my father is. And I know that because of who his father was. The first generation, Joe Garcia, signed up to serve in World War II at 17. And one day his mother, my great grandmother, had to actually sign off on that. And so, he's been a patriot and an American since day one. And that passed on to my father, which then passed on to me. And so, I'm just proud to get to talk to people and humbled that they'll invite me into their homes and want to have a conversation and talk about what struggles they're dealing with. And it really is food and gas and housing, cost of living. There was a gentleman yesterday, I was at a Fireball thing for a luncheon, and he said since he's got COVID, he has no appetite. And I was thinking when he was going into it, he was going to say it's great because he lost weight. And he said it was great because food is so expensive. He doesn't have to buy very much because he's not able to eat very much after being so sick. And I like, that just shattered me. That's ridiculous. The positive to that is, oh yeah, we lose weight. We all want to, every American probably wants to lose a few pounds, but to think you're grateful that you have no appetite from being sick because you can't afford to go to the grocery store, that's heartbreaking. And that's not the America I remember growing up in. And that's not the America I want to see for my children, my child, or anyone else's child. So I think just coming down to that level and having real world conversations about the struggles that people face has worked really well. I am proud to be a Republican, but I don't care what people are or how they're registered. I just want them to be intelligent and come to the table and vote so that we can have better policy and more balance in the state of California.
Absolutely. I'd love to open up that question for the rest of the group. Have you guys found ways to engage with the Latino community that has helped you, for the voter who's never voted Republican before? How do you help them get across that barrier?
I'll answer that question. A lot of older Hispanics have come to me and pounded me the question, do you think that the Latino community is conservative in its values? And sometimes I'm not sure if it's a set of questions or not. Is that a trick question? But what I found is that they're tired of everything. They're realizing that culturally, they feel that they're not being represented. When they see a person like myself and everybody here in this room, they now feel that someone can finally relate to them. And I think that goes with anybody. So when they have the right representation and then the voice, they feel inspired. I think that's going to be the one thing that we can always use to help these folks out and hear their voice be heard. If they don't feel like their voices are being heard, they're going to sway.
Right.
And they might sway for the wrong reasons. But I think that the Republican Party has done a great job. And yes, times do change. This is a great opportunity. And now we're seeing more elected officials that care about the community. Because at the end of the day, I don't vote on policies that only support Latino families. I vote on policies that support the city of Ceres and all the entire community. It just so happens that I am Latino.
I know that feeling. My dad was a 32-year-long Teamster shop steward and a proud Latin man. And he used to always say, if you always do what you always done, you always get what you always got. And I have seen that. And when he made the move from being a Democrat to a Republican, he exactly pointed out, I have been voting for Democrats for so long, and it has gotten me nowhere. And so that's what pushed him over to switching parties from Democrat to Republican. So what type of values, when you talk about the Republican Party, what type of values do you think coincide with the Latino community? It's for the whole group.
Family. I mean, first and foremost, I think family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Latino community, we love our children, we love our family. I mean, I know family members that are on my grandmother's brother's side of the family, so we have very large families, and I think that's what makes our community really tight. And also, I think our faith in God and our religion is what keeps us so well connected with the Republican Party, because I think the Republican Party acknowledges God and that He exists, and so we're the party of faith and family. So
I would say, in addition to faith and family, I mean, we just talked about just individual freedoms. I mean, My grandfather came from Jalisco, Mexico when he was 16 years old. He ended up, working at a local cannery for over 40 years. And I'll never forget, as a young teenager, the same year that he retired was the same year that he gained his citizenship, right? But it was all for the pursuit of freedom, the pursuit of opportunity, the ability to create a legacy and to leave something for the next generation, right? And I think that's really embedded into our rich, Hispanic, Latin heritage, regardless of what region you came from. We all come here with that goal and that focus, in mind. And, the fact that there's no substitute for hard work, grit, determination, perseverance, and just flat out never giving up. My wife both of her parents were migrant workers from California all the way up to Washington. I mean, they met in French Camp, California at a migrant camp. I mean, nobody can tell me anything different, that the American dream is still possible, and it's not out of reach. But we have to continue to be intentional about engaging and reaching out to, the Hispanic, Latin population, because when we have those conversations and we don't just say what we shouldn't be doing, but say what we are about, we'll discover that there's an alignment when it comes to values, and that's what's important.
That was another Frank Millanism. There is no substitute for hard work, and no one is going to do for you, nor should anyone else do for you. You should be the one that's going out there and doing for you. Don't expect it from anybody else. And that hard work ethic, that was something that my dad just really instilled in all 5 of us kids.
It's hope. We're talking about hope.
I can't wait to call you Congressman.
Think about it. Think about it. Okay, we all have, and most Americans have an immigrant story, right? Think about it. So I just shared a brief highlight of my grandfather, my wife's family, but now I just dropped my son off at college a month and a half ago. My daughter just got accepted into nursing school, right? And so it's just like, think about every generation. We have a responsibility, to leave a legacy and provide a brighter future, not a deeper burden for those who follow us. That's our job.
I definitely think we need to have it so that our kids can seize the opportunity, and that is hard work. And it's a little sad to see the generations today where I see so many people with just wanting the handout. I mean, I worked for EDD during the pandemic, so I had a lot of calls. And there was some people where it was like, well, what do I do now? My unemployment's run out and I can't pay my mortgage. And it's like, you call workforce services and they help you get a job. Like what I'm doing, I'm working a job. So, I think, but there's pride with that. It works in our prison systems. As I mentioned, I've got experience in CDCR, and like the fire camps and all these things are great programs that help people have an opportunity for a better future. And, I want to see that for our children. I don't want to just see it for incarcerated people. I want to see our children have better opportunities right out of high school. I think we've lost that over the last 20 years. So I think we need to get that back. But Hispanic communities, they're the ones that work. I remember growing up, you wanted to go to Washington, D.C. on your 8th grade field trip. You had to hustle it. We were painting someone's fence on the weekends. I don't even know if that's legal in 2024, but back then you could do things like that. You could get your dad and your brother and go out with paint and paint someone's ranch on 10 acres for a weekend and get enough money to do what you wanted to do. There was always an opportunity if you seized the moment. And I think that's the example I want to leave for my son and all the youth of California and even America, that you can still seize the opportunity. You can still climb up the ladder. My dad was the first to go to college. He didn't pay for that himself. He got a full ride scholarship because he was a good wrestler. He went to Olympic trials. He worked his butt off to make sure that he had that opportunity, so that when it came to us kids, there was a legacy he could leave us. And, we all want to do that for our children.
So a recent poll said 22% of California Latinos will be voting in the presidential election for the first time. What should Republicans make sure that they are doing to engage in this 22%?
I think we should continue to reach out to them. We have, obviously, social media is really big. we should be doing that. We should also be putting out newsletters and stuff in Spanish. I know just recently my office just started putting out newsletters in Spanish, and we've already immediately noticed our calls that maybe came in, like maybe one call in Spanish, now up to 3+ calls a day. And they're already working now, and they have the same issues that everybody else has as far as casework goes. They're living off Social Security, or maybe their medical bills aren't being covered on this. And so they have those issues. And thankfully, I have people in my office that speak Spanish. And so we did that for a reason, because we need to reach out to them as well. But I think more and more that they can see that we are relating to them and are basically going for the same issues that they have and seeing that we're the same people. I think that that's big and that's huge. And that's something I know we already brought up here with our communities. And I think also to add on to what was brought up earlier is a lot of our families. So like my dad's first generation here. So my grandparents came over from Mexico as well. And you can kind of see where my aunts and uncles were born, because they were making their way north in California as they were being born, and because they were in migrant camps. And I think originally they found themselves going to the Democratic Party because there were social programs that they liked that were helping them. But more and more now, as their children are growing, they're becoming business leaders and business owners, that they're finding out that, hey, you know, I work for my money. I want to be able to keep my money here in the community, in my family, and people should have to work as hard as I did to earn my money and not get a free handout like most people are wanting now. The entitlement is a big thing. You listening to you talking about painting the fences, or like us, like I remember mowing lawns. That was our GoFundMe back then, right? And now it's got a GoFundMe. They just say, click the button now. They don't really have to put any work into it like they used to. So I think connecting to them that way to let them know that, hey, we are the same, I think is really good. And it's going to help even get more voters.
And I think also to ensuring that the volunteers that are walking and canvassing the neighborhoods are Hispanic, are Latino, are speaking Spanish, and they can relate to those voters. And so we're ensuring this cycle that we're recruiting for a lot of anybody, to volunteer, but also being very strategic in where they're going and what neighborhoods they're knocking. And so, and really making an effort to target those heavily Latino, Hispanic neighborhoods where perhaps in the past we might have maybe avoided those neighborhoods, but we're changing our approach now, and we're seeing good results.
I was going to add that, we talk about social media, and that's something that I push really hard, but for the Latino community, a lot of them, they read the magazine. So has everybody heard of La Mejor magazine? For the last 9 months, I've had a piece in that newspaper, in that magazine, all in Spanish. And of course, for my team, Joshua was here today, us making sure that we translate what we want to say in Espanol, because we want to make sure that we convey that message. And the Hispanic community has reached out and said, we really do appreciate you telling us about the programs that are happening in our community, and that the reach too has been very important. So hopefully maybe in the near future, I can have each and every single candidate here be featured in the La Mejor magazine. They have been a great support. When I brought that idea to them, they were just like, this has never happened before. I said, I understand. It's not going to be politics. It's going to be informing our community, and coming from the mayor of the city of Ceres. But also, as we were here today, this is something that I can talk about in that magazine, so that way they can see that we're here and in their backyard.
I think about our U.S. Senate candidate, Steve Garvey, who has made the push in only Spanish-speaking media for his ad buys. He believes that the road to success here in California is through the Latino community. And so I think that people are catching on to what's going to make a difference. And the Latino population here could be our road to sanity back in Sacramento. Yeah. It could be the road to change in California. It could bring us back to a place where more people are coming here than leaving here. And I think that is what the Latino community will do. So how do you guys respond to concerns that the Republican Party isn't engaged with diverse communities, and specifically the Latino community? I can tell you, when I was first elected, when you're the first anything, I think this happens a lot. And the reality of it is I have a board of about 23. And at the time, almost half of it was women. We have 5 Latinos on the board. We had 2 openly gay men. We've had 2 African Americans on that board. And we have seen an incredible amount of diversity amongst the leadership at the California Republican Party. I don't feel like it always translates to the grassroots and everyday Californians. How do you guys encounter this?
I mean, I would say, Madam Chair, that the fact that we're having this roundtable and this conversation speaks volumes, and it's letting our Latin community or Hispanic community know that we care about them and matters and issues that are important to them, and we're willing to have, the courageous conversations, and we're willing to listen. And a big part of bridging that gap is, we talked about it earlier, is making sure that we're meeting our Hispanic community where they are, wherever they are. Each city, each district that we are seeking to represent, or that we do represent, is very unique and very different, especially as it relates to the Hispanic community. And within the Hispanic community, there's different factions, there's different groups.
We're not monolithic.
We have to, as elected representatives, as those seeking office, we have to understand our district, we have to understand our community, and it's not cookie cutter, right? We have to be willing to have those individual conversations with the different groups and organizations and understand what the needs is, but give them a seat at the table. And that's how we bridge that gap. And I mean, just personally, just piggybacking on Mayor Lopez's, comments, regarding his media outlet, that's another example of how he reaches, the Hispanic community in his city. We have Latino Times up in Northern California, we're around my district. And then my second ad that I released in my campaign, they're Democrat couple, Hispanic couple from my district that align with my values. We share the same values. They don't align with my values. We share the same values, and understand the issues, and we want change, right? And that's what it is we have to be willing to go to these places, have these conversations, but we also have to focus on our issues, and the issues that, quite frankly, are not red or blue. They're red, white, and blue issues.
Absolutely. How about the rest of you?
Actually, I think something important is that we need to be able to tell our story and not let it be told by someone else. And so that's something that myself, as the chair of the Central Committee in Stanislaus County, is pushing. I'm engaging with the Modesto Bee, which is our local newspaper, and ensuring that when they're writing an article, that they can reach me and I can give them a comment on something that took place. And so I think, again, just making sure that we're telling our story. We can let folks know, how much we're investing in Spanish language material or what have you. And so I would encourage, and I am encouraging my members to be part of the community more, not just, come to our monthly Central Committee meetings, but be on boards and commissions and ensuring that our voice is heard. So that's what we're doing.
There's a large Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here in Merced. And I mean, a lot of it's just showing up. You don't have to, just showing up to events as they happen means the world to people, because it means you're prioritizing their priorities as part of your own, and you're showing up to be part of the community. And I mean, for me, it's easy because I live here. So, which I think that's how it should be for most elected people. Just show up for your community and be there. And my district I think it's over 60% Latino in my district. So I mean, you win or lose if you get the Hispanic community here in Assembly District 27. So that's huge, huge, but it's a great opportunity, and I'm excited to be a better voice for people that live here.
I'll finish with this. I think that this is a perfect example how residents here in this area and where I'm at, they can learn to trust us. This is the first step. Maybe the second step could be this forum in Espanol, because we talked about that earlier, right? Although I say I speak Spanish, I'm not the perfect person. Sí puedo hablar español sin problema. So I think that being here is going to show the public they can trust us. We're authentic. I've worked with the exception of Joanna, I've worked with every single person in this room on issues. And I know these men very well. And I know that they care about our community. I know Joanna cares about our community. And that's the number one thing that our constituents want to know, is that they can trust us. They unfortunately have been misguided, and I don't want to say the word lie, but I'll just say lied to believe that we don't care about the community. Now that they're seeing that we're in a position where we can be their voice, now they're realizing that they can start trusting us, and they can sway. I'll tell you that there's been many who have been working with my campaign that weren't sure where they were going to register as, but as soon as I came in, I became the mayor. It was clear. It was clear for them, and I'm glad that that is clear for them, and we all share the same value. So trust, I think, is one key thing that will make sure that we make sure that we do in order to alleviate their concerns.
One thing that I was just absolutely blown away when we opened up this community center was how many young people were here, how many young Latinos were here and engaged in the process. I'd love to get your feedback on where are the Hispanic youth at when it comes to the Republican Party, and why are they getting involved with the political process? What are you seeing, and how does that differ from our generation? Mayor.
I would say the next generation. I mean, I'm a father of two. You know, I have an 18-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter, right? And so they're very in tune with what's happening in the world right now. I mean, how it differs from our generation is these young people and students nowadays, they have the world at their fingertips. If they want information, they can get it just like that. In fact, they expect information just like that. But also, you know, they're the vibe generation as well, you know, to a sense. What I mean by that is because they have so much access to just various perspectives and views right at their fingertips, it's easy for them to discern who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie, right? And I'm encouraged, and I have hope in this next generation, because not only because of my own two children, but I spend a lot of time in the schools that represent Stockton kids, and I spend a lot of time speaking to them and hearing from them. And we cannot discredit the youth. We can't. I mean, in my district, nearly a third of our population is under the age of 18. If I'm not engaging those young people, if I'm not being accessible, if I'm not modeling to them what a good representative or what they should expect of a representative right now, when they become of age to vote, right, I'm giving them a disservice. So what do? Just 2 weeks ago, a few weeks ago, I went to one of the local high schools and did pre-voter registration for students. And we took 100 voter registration cards, and we got all 100 of those cards out of there. One of the teachers came back to me and said, "Well, Mayor, it looks like that went exceptionally well. I only found 2 on the floor, right?" But here's so you know, that's 98%. We'll take it. But what was surprising to me when I was at that table during that school visit was there's a handful of students that came into me and said, "I'm going to take this for my mom or for my dad because they're not registered," right? So we have to check those boxes on every level. And we got to show this next generation that we do care about them, and we do see them, and we hear them.
I've also noticed, like, when we go door to door and we're knocking, I've noticed that, yeah, we're asking for the parents, but I've noticed more that the teenagers are actually like ear hustling or want to be there and listen and be part of it. And I've actually have had some of them ask questions. So I was like, okay, wow, you're actually wanting to know this stuff. It makes you feel better.
Is such a nice way to say chismosos.
So it's great to see that they're interested. I've even had some town hall meetings where I was at a community brunch, and a teacher came to me and she was telling me, "Hey, some of my students attended your town hall meeting, and ever since they were at your town hall meeting, they've been so involved now with their government class and stuff like that, because they're actually seeing it work now, and they're actually met a representative, and so doing those kind of things also, I think, inspire others to get involved."
So I'll share a similar story as the mayor. For the last 4 years, I've been attending the yearly career days. And some of the parents, I ran into one of the teachers at a grocery store. And she's like, hey, Mayor Lopez, can you believe the kids are asking for you to come back? And I said, wait, over our fire department? It's like, they're asking for you and the fire department, the police department, majorly to want to come back because they've never had an actual elected official show up and talk to the students. And then I'll take you over to, as I've been coaching football for the last 8 years, when every time there is something happening in our world, like they want to come to me like, hey, Mayor Lopez, what do you know? I said, young man, I said, I already have a local municipal jurisdiction. I said, but maybe I'll make a phone call to our congressman. Oh, the congressman. So they look. So now they're interested and they want to know what's happening. And I think you're right. Our young people, they do see through the lies. They see through the misleading. They see the gaslighting that's going on, and they are also concerned because some have said that there's things that are being forced down their throats. And I tell them, listen, that you have to make that decision on your own. You can't allow outside influence to influence you. And obviously, I always make sure that they realize that at the same time, these are conversations you should have with your parents as well, because you guys are a unit, you guys are a family. So I think at the end of the day, our youth is I think they were in a good place. I know as a football coach, I do gauge on the softness of each generation. It is our job, and it is our job to mentor, teach them, but also make sure that they realize that we're family at the end of the day. And I think our youth is our future. We cannot disregard them because at the end of the day, we were all very, very young at one time. And I'm sure there have been times where some people ignored you or felt that, you had no voice. But as resilient as we are now, that's probably why we're in this elected positions and also going for office, because we know that our mindset is of that one of we have to get things done. So, and our youth are looking at us. They're seeing us, especially in the engagement in this era. They see us on social media, whether they see good news or bad news. But when they see us in person, I think it makes a stronger presence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think for the Central Committee, when I became chair, I realized we only had Facebook. So instantly we made an Instagram page. Yeah, that's what I was hearing. Like, oh, we just have Facebook. That's for old people. And I'm like, oh, man. So we created that Instagram account. And, I usually ask teenagers and young 20-year-olds on how can I make this Instagram more popular or better? And they're like, oh, yeah, you need to add stories. And I'm like, what's a story? And so they're just showing us how to, maneuver through IG and TikTok and things like that. So that's how we're focusing on the youth, among other ways.
No more MySpace?
That's the old one.
Maybe we'll bring it back.
Right, I know we already have a couple of hands up. So just a reminder to anybody, if you'd like to ask a question, we'll try and get to as many as possible. And just go ahead and put your hand up and we'll go ahead and start. You have a couple that are already there. And we'll unmute you. Okay, we have a question from Christine Diaz. Christine, I think you're off mute on our end. Christine, I think you're still muted. Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay. I know some of this was already covered, but my question was, as a party on the different levels, as a party also as knocking on doors, what is the most effective way to communicate with the Hispanic communities? And how are we getting the information to them? And how are you, as a party, we are meeting with the Hispanic groups? What is the plan that we have as a party, and how we bring it down to like door knocking?
Yeah, I think that Chairman Campos really talked about some of the things that they're doing in Stanislaus County and some of the things that we're doing around the state. One, we're trying to make as much possible available in Espanol. I went to Mass actually in Ceres, and the church that I went to, right in the front, has this beautiful sculpture of the 10 Commandments. And on one side, it's in English, and on the other side, it's in Espanol. So finding volunteers that are able to walk and knock and make phone calls in Espanol. So if the language issue comes up, we have someone that is there that can meet them, can talk to them in a way that we can continue to engage. Also, having literature available in both English and Espanol, I think, is critical for connecting with the Latino community. Chairman Campos also mentioned that he has engaged with the Hispanic Chamber in his community as the party. I think these are all critical steps. I think Joanna Garcia Rose has something to add.
I was just going to say, as someone who doesn't speak Spanish but is Hispanic, my dad was born in the 50s. So in Iowa in the 50s, you assimilated, you did not learn Spanish. His grandparents had him only learn English. So then I didn't get to learn Spanish because he didn't speak it. But I'm still very empathetic and I want to know what's going on. So I actually had my campaign team make me my 3 talking points in English and in Spanish, and it's a piece of paper I carry with me so that we can read it together and I can know what I'm telling them, my tough on crime, fixing education, bringing water to the valley, making things affordable. It's all of my talking points. And that's, I wasn't sure it would work, but I was like, I need this because I'm just trying to like ad lib and find the website to talk to people. And it really does, having the time to sit there and go through stuff with people. They appreciate it. I mean, I've never felt so like accepted doing that, trying to make that connection. So I think we just, and that can work for anyone, even if we don't get a Spanish speaker, if they have that resource, like I have that resource, so you can build that relationship and that connection.
Yeah, and I'd say also making sure your websites have the ability to translate
Spanish,
into Spanish as well. And then we talked a little bit about, I mentioned door knocking, but also phone banking is extremely important to make sure that you have members on your team when they're phone banking, they can speak in Spanish to those voters.
And if I may also add, besides the Stanislaus Latino Chamber of Commerce and Stanislaus, there's other groups also that are already have a big group and a big following to where, for the most part, we are limited in what resources we have. And it's great to reach out to others who can also share our messages. But we also have, like in South Modesto, we have the South Modesto Business United. We also have in West Modesto, we have the West Modesto Community Collaborative, 3 big groups that reach out and share their message with the community. And I think that's also wise for other candidates in their area also to find those groups or clubs or associations in their districts to also meet with them. Let them know who you are, so then that way they can share with their people who follow them or their members. And who knows, you may even get door knockers out of that as well.
Yeah. Central Valley
That's
Leadership Roundtable
Yes.
is the big one from Fresno to Stanislaus, I believe. They rotate between Fresno, Madera, Merced counties for their meetings. They're another big opportunity.
They're great resources.
And
we
most of
should
their
use them.
meetings are held in Spanish, but they're so gracious. They always have someone who can translate it so that you can still come even if you don't speak Spanish. So it's really great.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Patsy Ayala. I met Patsy last Saturday. I know you, Patsy. I saw the big sign with by the precinct walk on Saturday in Santa Clarita, right?
Yes, doing the honor of course, representing as a Republican, but also as a Hispanic candidate in Santa Clarita. We have a very good turnout recently walking, and I'm so glad to listen to you and take notes of what I can do here to help to make a difference. And my question, because I worked before with the state of California, my question is, with Democrats in the supermajority in Sacramento, how do Republicans convince Hispanic voters that we can have an impact in the legislature?
Well, I would say win more races, but what do you say?
I would definitely say win more races. But I have found that a lot of voters have lost hope, and they need to be encouraged to bring that hope back. As long as like, hey, my vote doesn't matter. Why should I vote? Everybody always vote for anyway. It loses anyways. But if they look into races more closer, like if you look at Greg Wallace's race, down in Southern California. He won by 85 votes.
Yep.
So yeah, he only needed one on top of all those, but the 84 on top of that, they said that, hey, this is who we want. And Assemblymember Wallace has been great up there. And so now everybody's been able to see how much work he's been able to accomplish just by making sure that they voted. And again, that was just 85 people. So it does make a difference. And so I think the big thing for most of us is just encourage people that your vote does count. For those of us going out and even trying to cure votes at the end, we'll also discover that it really makes a big difference. And so I think that's one of our biggest hurdles, is just making sure that people know, hey, yeah, there may be a super majority there, but it's coming to the point to where, people are understanding that, hey, we've had 3 decades of a majority party, and do you feel any better? Do you feel any safer in your community? Those kind of things. And I think people are starting to shift. So make sure they get out there and vote. I think that's one of our big things that we need to do.
Anyone else want to add anything?
I mean, I was talking about it last night in the debate that, they've got the supermajority, but they don't have to have the supermajority. You can flip seats like my seat and many other seats, and we can bring that balance back. When you eliminate the supermajority, it gives everyone a stronger voice on the other side. And it gets that dialogue and that debate going, where you don't just have one side being able to have complete control and their idea is the only good idea. And, California is 40%, maybe even more now, Republican at minimum. And we have 18 out of 80 representatives in Sacramento. But whose fault is that? It's the voters' fault. Your vote does count. And we have to get out and vote and make our voices known that we want change and we want balance. And that's what I encourage everyone in my district to do, is stand up and be the difference.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time today, but I'd like to give a huge thank you to this esteemed panel. I always enjoy these conversations so much. I always learn more and more. And also, I was given some hope and some excitement for this November. So thank you all for being with us here today. Thank you to everybody who joined us via Zoom and virtually. This concludes our panel, and we hope to see you out there knocking on doors and making phone calls and turning out the vote in the next month. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.